doing? Get out of here now!
Mega Man Legends was always one of those games I had as a child that was too difficult to beat. Nevertheless, it somehow managed to make a lasting impression on me. This game was among the earliest 3D video games to ever be released, and after several decades, many things about it are still extremely impressive. What makes the game stand out is not its story, but its atmospheric dungeon design and flexible world exploration, allowing the player to feel free in an otherwise linear game. The gameplay is stellar because of how it requires Mega Man to be quick on his feet and yet patient with his timing. The equipment enhancements that Mega Man receives also keeps the gameplay mechanics constantly evolving, opening up new areas in compact spaces so that the world design seems to expand inward on itself. The atmosphere of these dungeons have also carved out a spot in my imagination, from the low, rumbling emptiness of the ruins to the nightmarish droning of the later dungeons. Try as I might, however, little me never got to the end of this game, but I've always wondered what happened and whether it still holds up. Recently, I played through Mega Man Legends again, and this is my experience as I investigated the eternal question, how is Mega Man Legends now? Before we reach the title screen, we're treated to a bit of exposition via this scrolling text, which introduces the background of the world and some of the game's campy but endearing voice acting.
The people of this world rely on ancient technology, driven by quantum refractors, a powerful energy source. Originally, this was the diggers' only purpose, to find refractors so that civilization might endure.
Long ago, there was a high-tech civilization that far exceeded the ones around today, but all that's left of it now are ruins. Now, the world is covered mostly by water, and the people get their energy by digging down into the old ruins and finding refractor shards in the ancient machinery.
Roll! It's still active! The reactor's still running! Whoa! I'm okay, Roll. Everything's all right here.
Since this game came out a year before analog control, Mega Man is moved with the D-pad. And like other early 3D games, Mega Man is tank controlled, meaning that he's turned with L1 and R1. The X button allows us to jump, the triangle button to kick, and holding down R2 we can lock onto enemies and shoot at them with square. This effectively locks the camera into place so that Mega Man is always looking forward, which is usually convenient because that's where we want to aim our blaster anyway. By today's standards, these controls are a little bit archaic, but if you give them a try, they're really not that bad. There's a mechanical exactness to Mega Man's movements that we can use to our advantage when the game's boss fights become more challenging and require extreme precision. One thing this game does well is slowly increasing the difficulty over time. Since there's no EXP, it's possible to beat Mega Man Legends without doing any grinding whatsoever. You'll find weapons, parts, and equipment that make the battles easier, but if you wanted to, you could beat the game just by mastering the basic controls. In some ways, however, the controls do show how the game has aged, particularly with the lock-on mechanic. For example, this robot crawling over the ceiling needs to be targeted with R2, but by doing so, Mega Man's big head is in the way, completely blocking the action from view. We don't really need to see what's going on, but it would be nice to. The other problem with the lock-on mechanic is that when there are more than one enemies in a room, the game has no way of knowing which enemy you want to target. Locking onto the enemy closest in proximity, not the enemy in direct line of sight. This means that we may be looking directly at a robot, trying to lock onto it, and then the game whips us around completely in the other direction to target a robot right behind us. Fortunately, this isn't game-breaking because the fact that Mega Man is tank-controlled means that we're always looking where we want to shoot. The energy bullets of Mega Man's Buster Gun also slightly gravitate toward an enemy, so it's very possible to play most of this game without using the lock-on mechanic at all. Making our way through the opening dungeon, we enter one door and get surprised by the game's first boss fight, a giant robot with a huge drill for an arm. To survive this battle, we'll have to move in circles around it, firing as we move if possible. Or we can wait for it to attack and shoot at it while it's taking time to recover from the swing. This is more or less the key to success in Mega Man Legends. Tough enemies will often be completely invulnerable to attack, except at specific key moments, usually just after they've attacked us. Many of the tougher boss fights will feature enemies who can't be hurt except by targeting a tiny portion of their body. Because of this, the action element of Mega Man Legends feels more intentional and tactical. If you try to attack constantly without waiting for a good opportunity, Mega Man will die, and he'll die quickly. Most of the time, you'll be getting in 1 or 2 good shots whenever the window of opportunity is open. As the game gets harder and we get better, the game slowly closes this window of opportunity until there's almost no room for error. By the time we reach later boss fights, the player needs to have mastered every aspect of this combat. After this first tutorial boss battle, Mega Man heads up to the top of the tower, but not so fast. The boss has come back for one final showdown, letting the game show off some of its awesome cinematography. Once we're on the ship, we meet Mega Man's friends, Roll and the Professor, who are looking for treasure with us in old ruins. This game is often like watching a great 90s anime. Check out these wonderful facial expressions and the superb voice acting.
All's well that ends well, right? If only the mother lode were as easy to find as this.
Don't worry, we'll find it someday. And your parents, too.
Thanks, I know we will.
Roll, the engine's overheating. Roll, the number 5 feeder's going crazy.
Unfortunately for us, the ship crash lands in Cardon Forest on Catalox Island. Now the game is starting to open up a bit. Mega Man Legends is an early example of sandbox world design, which means that the player has a great degree of freedom despite being a perfectly linear game. The game accomplishes this by establishing certain zones of gameplay while restricting others. Then our access to these other areas is slowly increased over time through the use of new equipment and abilities. This makes every playthrough feel a little bit different, despite being more or less the same, and gives the player a real sense of agency. It establishes this sense of freedom by telling us to go to town, and then allowing us to go entirely in the other direction, where we can find 2 entrances to the ruins that only become accessible much later. Since we're not able to go inside yet, we head back to town, following this janky sign just as the police show up.
Mega Man! The police saw us crash land and came to check up on us.
Well, you certainly put on quite a show.
We need you to fill out some immigration forms so you can get your registration and ID card.
While you're waiting, you can spend your time in the shopping arcade next to the city.
The shopping mall is little more than a hallway, but the vibrant colors and fantastic attention to detail makes it feel like much more than it is. There are some interesting NPCs to talk to, garbage cans to dig around in, which you'll want to make a habit of, and a soda can to kick around. This is one of those meaningless but endearing details that makes Mega Man Legends so much fun to play, and it shows how much effort the designers put into making this world feel alive and responsive to the player. With nothing else to do, we check out the repair shop, and unfortunately for us, the owner hasn't come back yet from a dig in the ruins. Since we're in a bit of a hurry, we go find him ourselves. The Reaver bots are more numerous here, and they're raining down grenades from above. If you're observant, you'll notice that the landing that the bots are on seems reachable, but for now, it's too high. This is going to be a common feature moving forward. The game will frequently allow us to observe inaccessible places that we'll later find ourselves rediscovering from another route, or accessing with new equipment. Not far away from the entrance, we find the shop owner surrounded by robot snakes. After taking them out, he promises to give us something nice in return at his shop, and then he runs home before the robots come back, giving us more time to explore. Inside of a chest here, we find a new buster part, a rapid fire attachment, which we can equip. Here is where Mega Man Legends starts to feel more like an RPG, because from here on, we'll be finding these attachments everywhere, or purchasing them in town. This one increases the rate of fire on our buster gun. On the way out, be sure to check out this hole in the wall behind the chest, where you'll find a nice stash of Zenny, the game's money. The game is often putting its best equipment in a random hole in the wall, or a trash can, or a cardboard box, so you'll want to make sure you check everything. Now that the shop owner's back, we find out that he doesn't actually have ship parts, but to show his thanks, we get a weapons upgrade module and his old car for Roll to fix up. The shop owner's wife also asks for our name, and we're allowed to introduce ourselves as Hippopotamus, which she'll continue to call us for the rest of the game. This car is going to be our base of operations. Inside of it, Roll will make new equipment for Mega Man out of what he's found in the ruins. This is where the main gameplay loop comes into focus. Mega Man will head down into a ruin, explore for parts, and return to Roll, who will make him something new out of what he's found. Some of these parts will create equipment that add a new functionality to Mega Man, and these new abilities will allow us to access different areas of the world. To give one example, Mega Man can only jump so high at the beginning of the game, but later his jump height will be doubled, and previous areas we couldn't reach before allow us to penetrate deeper into the ruins and find yet more parts to make equipment out of. In the car, we'll also be able to use Zenny to upgrade our weapons and heal ourselves or save our game with Data, our monkey friend.
Ah, there you are. I've been looking for you so I could give you this. Your citizen's card.
After fixing up the car, a police officer stops by to give us a city pass to go find the professor at City Hall, who's apparently got some nice connections in town. This brings us to the downtown area of the city, which felt massive to me as a child. Despite not having any buildings to enter except the library, it's a joy to run around in and feels very interactive. In the library, we find some residents who are trying to check out books before evacuating, and the librarian refuses to let the pirates shut her down. Way to go, librarian. We can also read up on some lore while we're here. Apparently, the island was only discovered 100 years ago, and since that time, it's managed to develop a high-tech city using some of the refractors found underground. However, rumor has it that there's a curse on the island, and it was previously uninhabited only because every 100 years there's a calamity that utterly destroys the population. Well, good thing it's just a legend, right? Outside the library, a man warns us to watch out for cars, which is good advice because people are driving like crazy out here, and they'll run right over you. We can also jump onto the cars and hitch a ride around the city. Although none of these houses can be entered, you can stand at their doors and listen to some conversations or read notes left behind by the owners. Now it's time to go uptown, but if you check out the sewer grate right in front of the door to the uptown district, we can actually go down into the sewers. At the end of the sewer, there's a hole in the wall, and what do you know, we're back in the ruins from before, on that landing that was previously too high for us to jump up to. We can't do much else here, but it's a wonderful way for the game to reward us for exploring, and it lets us know to keep looking out for surprises on the way. After visiting City Hall, we meet Amelia, the mayor, who's worried about the pirate invasion, which is just about to begin.
By the way, did you see those weird-looking ships that just flew past here? There goes one.
After this sequence, we trigger some epic battles in the city, which can be difficult at first.
We're pirates.
The game is still easing us in, allowing us to heal ourselves if necessary, even as buildings explode around us. The pirate invasion climaxes in a fight at City Hall, and this is where I think we meet the first real boss of the game. This yellow robot sends guided missiles in our direction, and at the same time tries to smack at us as if we're some annoying mosquito.
offensive was beaten back by an equally mysterious young boy.
Who the heck is that blue boy?
Once the pirate invasion is finally repelled, Amelia gives us a Class B digger's license, allowing us to enter more ruins. And the game opens up considerably from here. We can enter every part of town, which consists of several large areas: uptown, downtown, the Lake District, and the old factory district, where violent wild dogs run rampant. We can also go to the countryside, where pirates are continuing their invasion by drilling into the ground for legendary treasure. While exploring here, we can fight off the tanks and even blast at the tiny Lego pirates for extra measure, but I'm not sure that's necessary. It's pretty cute though. There's also a flower that we can pick up and give to Roll, which she'll later put on display in our spaceship after fixing it up. The dungeons in this game are deceptively simple. Many of them appear to be nothing but a few rooms and hallways at first, but over time they become more complex, and the real genius of the design is only revealed later when these areas become interconnected. The misleading simplicity of these ruins are also enhanced by the general atmosphere permeating them. Instead of filling the huge rooms with energetic music that one might expect from a Mega Man game, we listen to Mega Man's echoing footsteps below the murmuring rumble of high stone ceilings and long corridors. I think this is the main reason Mega Man Legends stuck out to me so much as a child. When you dive down into the ruins and hear the droning emptiness around you, combined with the moving noise of deadly machines in distant rooms, it really feels like a Mega Man version of Tomb Raider. You can get legitimately lost down here as the place opens up. Eventually, you'll be able to run down here and never quite know which part of the island you're going to pop up from again. And there are legitimate surprises and dangers to be had. Consider this enemy who suddenly lunges at us after stepping through some automatic doors. It's the same boss we fought at the beginning of the game, but this time it's much harder. Now it has 2 drill arms instead of 1, and chases us around a confined space. Mega Man has very few opportunities here to turn around, aim, and shoot, without getting his head bashed in. Eventually, making use of our launcher, this beast of a robot finally blows up, filling the room with beautiful shiny Zenny. The game consistently evolves these enemies, and even if some of them do reappear, they do so with new tricks, like these fighter robots who patrol the ground areas of large rooms. Later in the game, in a room that's being flooded by the lake above, these patrolling robots are invisible, except after making an attack, and we just have to run away from them and wait for them to get a swing in and reveal themselves. One area that Mega Man Legends might have shined brighter in is the platforming. What's here is mostly basic leaping from platform to platform without much challenge. The puzzles are easy and sparse, with the exception of several interesting ones, but even those are nothing really too special. I wish there were more sections like this part where we find a rusted chest and we can break it open by letting it ride a conveyor belt to some rotating spikes. The platforming and problem solving are really at their best during the boss fights. One in particular that stands out is the fight against Teasel's tractor, which is mostly invincible to attack except under a very specific circumstance. To hurt this tractor, first we have to hinder its mobility by striking at the wheels, then climbing the hillside and destroying the tanks there so that we can wait for the perfect opportunity to leap onto the tractor and fire into the escape hatch that periodically opens up. This is the only way to hurt it, and it's a perfect combination of action combat with classic platforming and problem solving that I wish the game did more often in other areas.
What are you standing around for? Put out the fire! Put it out!
The dungeons make up for it in other ways though. The enemies all need a specific tactic to be defeated, such as these samurai robots that have a defensive shield. The boss fights, without exception, all require the player to be clever and at the top of their game. One little mistake is usually fatal. During this fight against the yellow behemoth, Mega Man is only able to damage it by targeting its little tiny head, which can't be locked onto with R2. We have to jump high into the air and fire at it when we're at the apex of our leap. The trouble is, the boss is going to dive head first at us, so we can't let him catch us mid-jump. I had barely any health left during this fight, and I refused to walk all the way out of the dungeon, back to the boat, and then ride back to town just to heal myself. The method that finally worked for me was hugging the wall. This way, whenever the boss leaped back to the center of the room, I had as much space as possible to shoot at it while the boss took its time turning around and stepping toward me. Although this boss fight is difficult, it's fair. You can beat him so long as you are extremely careful and strategic. Other boss fights, however, are more frustrating. There's a long sequence on the lake during which your boat is being chased around by submarines and flying robots, leaving you with little to do except try to survive. This wouldn't be that bad except for the fact that it's followed up by a boss fight without any opportunity of healing or saving. This happened again during a very similar sequence when Mega Man is on the top of the airship, and we have to shoot down flying spacecraft before another boss fight with Teasel's mothership. But that's not all. After Teasel's taken down, Miss Tron flies in on her pretty sweet mech and gives us the hardest challenge yet, flying in circles around us and launching guided missiles that we have to take out because they can't be dodged. And then she comes back around, raining down bullets on us from overhead. These attacks are so frequent and relentless that the only time we can hurt Miss Tron is by sending a few bullets her way during extremely narrow opportunities. Although these battles are a spectacle to watch, they're my least favorite part of the game, and reminded me why I couldn't beat Mega Man Legends as a kid. I was happy when they were finally over, and I could finally get back to adventuring in the ruins. Once we've explored enough dungeons, we find a refractor that repairs our ship, and from here, Roll can fly us around the island and bring us to the entrances of various ruins. Roll has the flower we gave her in a vase, and in her bedroom, Mega Man can be a little creepy by wondering what underwear she has. Anyway, after all that adventuring, we've also got a lot of money, so we donate it to the city, completely funding their restoration project. Over time, the buildings that were destroyed before start being reconstructed until everything is back to what it used to be at the start of the game. Around this point, we get our sweet jet skates, allowing us to zip from one edge of the map to another. By now, Mega Man should have all kinds of equipment that make traversing the map faster and easier, and it's always fun to look back at the start of the game when things were simple and see how they developed from there. Eventually, we managed to open up every entrance to the ruins, revealing the main gate and an underground city. The game is nearing its conclusion, but we're not rushed into the finale. Instead, we have time to explore for as long as we want, investigating every corner and developing every piece of armor. Once we are ready for the end of the game, we can go back to our ship and walk in on Roll changing.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here now. Next time, knock before opening the door.
Sorry, Roll.
Okay. To access the final area, we head down this spiraling ramp that descends deep into the earth, and it's a little disorienting. At the bottom, there are 3 doors, one after another, that can only be opened with 3 keys, each of which are found in different areas of the underground city.
Huh? That sounded like a door opening somewhere. I better take a look around.
Once we get them, we open the 3 doors and head into a completely white room with a radar map of the island that shows population density in red. Mega Man has a strange feeling he's been there before, just as the blue doors to a mysterious containment chamber begin to open. Inside is Mega Man Juno, an eerily cheerful Mega Man model with a dangerous task to execute.
It's a man? A person?
Was it you who awoke me? The number of carbon units is not allowed to increase beyond the pre-specified limit. If this happens, they are to be purged immediately. Their numbers will grow, polluting the surface world. They can be quite a nuisance.
Carbons. Do you mean the people on the island?
The carbons fit mass population model B. They are unstable.
Mega Man Juno prepares to launch the rockets that will kill everyone on the island, and we can rush in to stop him when we're ready. If not, we can head back and continue grinding through the rest of the content of the game, playing mini-games, finding parts, or buying upgrades, which I continued to do until I was finally strong enough to defeat the boss fights coming ahead, because boy are they hard. Once we're ready, we can go find Mega Man Juno, and an epic fight begins between them. He has 3 main attacks. He can fly headfirst at us from across the room, leap into the air and stomp down on our heads, or release a burning laser. This is a tough fight, and we'll have to be quick, because the only way to hurt Mega Man Juno is to shoot at him whenever he's slowed down between attack transitions, which is a very narrow window of time. Not only this, but you'll have to fight conservatively, because the battle doesn't end with Mega Man Juno.
My. It would appear that I have made an error. You were nearly successful in terminating my life support subroutine functions.
When I got to this point the first time, I had 0 health left, so I ended up loading up my last save and doing some extra grinding before coming back a bit stronger, which I highly encourage everyone to do because it is possible to get overpowered in this game. Now, in his final form, Mega Man Juno hurls supernovas at us, and one lovely effect is that the heat of those balls actually makes the environment ripple. With him out of the way, the missiles turn around, saving Catalog's island and allowing the Carbons to continue overpopulating. Amelia comes to our ship to thank us just before we set off, and the residents of the island also show their gratitude just before the credits start to roll. Finally, after hours of exploring, upgrading, fighting, and dying, the game comes to an end. Mega Man Legends was a pleasant surprise to play after all these years because although some of the controls may be archaic and it has all the inconveniences of 90s video games, it still captivated me with its detailed world building and responsive environment.
Okay, setting new course. Here we go.
It manages to do an incredible amount on a surprisingly little canvas. The game doesn't have a great deal of areas or assets, but it feels constantly refreshed by the way new equipment affect the player's ability to interact with the world, and the way the different zones of the world interact with each other. I hope Capcom decides to revive this franchise. Even a remaster with some modern conveniences would make this game extremely enjoyable in this day and age. To end the review, Mega Man Legends gets a score of...
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here now!